I've been using these cameras in tandem for nearly 2 months now, and after all that time I've came down to one conclusion that's at least applicable to my own personal use case. From my experience, the A119 resolution outweighs the minimal increase in A119S's low light capability. What that means is, for the most part, I'm recommending the A119 over the S, because the difference is pretty hard to see, so you might as well save your money. However, if you plan on using a CPL filter, or you drive at night a lot on roads that are not illuminated like country roads or back roads, it may be wise to get the S instead. So let's start this review with the differences in the bodies. The cameras are almost exactly the same in appearance and are based on the same case. The main difference is in the lens. The A119 is a wider angle lens, which results in a little bit more distortion. However, the lens on the A119 can also turn left to right, whereas the S can only move up or down. That's about it though, so let's move on to video quality. When we look at video quality, it's going to be really hard to tell from side-by-side footage, but the A119 has the edge over the S model during the day in terms of sheer resolution. Sure, the S model does look great too, and I can't really find any faults in its video quality, but check out these side-by-side 100% crops from both cameras. So what I did is I froze the cameras at about the same time. This even takes into account the extra wide angle of the A119. The additional resolution of the A119 is immediately apparent. That's kind of a win-win with the A119 then, because you get to see more of the surrounding features, and at the same time you don't lose out on license plate legibility. Where the S edges out the original A119 though is in color processing. When it's overcast, you won't be able to see too much of a difference, but in bright sunny conditions or in tough to film conditions, such as when you're looking directly at the sun, the S is able to pull out just a little bit more detail from the highlights and shadows. I noticed a similar characteristic at night in the city. Throughout my testing, the S was consistently able to process highlights, shadows, and colors better than the A119. However, the extra resolution of the original A119 kept winning me over. The biggest difference between the two cameras' night processing became immediately apparent on country roads. Out in the country where there's no street lighting or very minimal street lighting, the S camera exposes much brighter than the A119, and you're able to see far more of your surroundings. For comparison's sake, the A119's night mode is about the same as the A119S with the CPL filter, and a CPL filter cuts down on the light that the camera receives. Since I do most of my driving during the day, it doesn't make that big of a difference for me. But if you drive on dark roads that aren't illuminated by street lighting, or you plan to use a CPL filter, the S might be the better choice. The S's night mode is superior, however the A119's night mode will be adequate for most users. Since the cameras are based on the same form factor and accessories, both share the same major problems. And there is one problem that has been plaguing these cameras, and that is the power issue. Many users report the camera's flickering screens or constantly resetting, and that is due to the camera not receiving enough power. In some cases, the GPS unit is at fault, and plugging the power directly into the side of the camera instead of through the GPS unit fixes it, and in other cases it's actually the power adapter. Either way, if you buy one of these cameras, I would highly recommend setting aside a few extra dollars for a better power adapter, or buying a good quality hardwire kit and not one of the cheap ones. The second not so positive trait that both these cameras share is a lack of a good parking mode. This is probably one of the biggest gripes I've seen around Reddit and dashcam talk. These cameras are great when you're driving, but if you need a parking mode, they're not really going to cut it. To access the parking mode, you have to pause recording, open the menu, scroll down a ton, select the option, then close the menu again, and that's a pretty big pain in the butt. Firmware updates keep pushing the performance of these cameras, and apart from the power supply issue, the cameras have been reliable throughout my testing. I ended up putting the A119S facing backwards in my car and leaving the original A119 on the front. The rear is a tough place to film at night, especially because car headlights glare straight into the camera, so having the better processing of bright and shadow parts will help that. Hopefully this review gave you some insight into why I think which camera is better than which, and if you have any questions, please leave them below. Thanks for watching.